I give President Trump a lot of credit for doing this debate on the terms that were effectively set by Biden. Hosted by CNN in Atlanta without a live audience would be the equivalent of Joe Biden agreeing to do a Fox News hosted debate in Alabama with 3,000 live audience members. So I give Donald Trump a lot of credit for that. If you're going to lead the country, you got to be able to show up, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Vivek Ramaswamy on CNN this morning with an astonished John Berman waiting to jump in and talk about how great the Democrat organization is. I just talking during the break and reminded of the fact that the Mar-a-Lago raid, we learned not too long ago that the FBI had been authorized to use lethal force. You may recall, we talked about the story here May 21st of 2024. FBI was authorized to use, quote, deadly force, end quote, in classified document search at Trump's Mar-a-Lago court filings reveal. And that was just a revelation not too long ago. We, a matter of weeks ago, about a month, and we learned that the Justice Department had authorized the use of deadly force when FBI agents swarmed former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in August of 2022, looking for classified documents. And they found classified documents because they brought them. Now, I can't speak to what each page in the documents said. I know that the President of the United States has declassification authority, and the Vice President does not. And Joe Biden had classified documents discovered at multiple locations, and I don't recall the FBI bringing in classified document cover sheets, staging the scene, photographing the scene, and then handing the photos over to media hostile to Joe Biden. That didn't happen in the case of Joe Biden. Isn't that remarkable? And was the use of deadly force authorized when they went rummaging around in Joe Biden's garage in Delaware, where his green Corvette resides or resided? And it's a beautiful Corvette, of course, but it's got nothing to do with Joe Biden. And did they authorize the use of deadly force? Did they bring classified document cover sheets to the Joe Biden location searches? Did they photograph documents sprawled out and displayed for dramatic effect on the floor, on the ground, on the carpet, in the garage? Did they add the classified document cover sheets to the classified documents they found at multiple Joe Biden locations? Did they then photograph those locations and then hand over the photographs to the media that is, might be hostile to Joe Biden? Extraordinary stuff. Did the FBI shut down any surveillance cameras at Joe Biden locations? These are questions that ought to be answered now. This is really the political equivalent of bringing vials of blood to O.J. Simpson's house and spreading the blood around on his socks and his shoes and his bed and in his bathroom. But I don't believe anybody did that, honestly. So the use of deadly force authorized, these are important questions because we've got a very corrupt government. I'm sorry to have to say that out loud and to, I wouldn't say if I didn't believe it, but it is, the evidence is everywhere that there is corruption in every corner of this story. Amazing. Speaking of frauds and fakes, remember the Felonious 51 that signed on, including Dana Bash's ex-husband, Jeremy Bash. The Felonious 51 signing on to that letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop and the reporting in the New York Post, which should get the Nobel Prize and every other prize you get for reporting, but will get nothing. I know, just a Pulitzer or something, but never mind that. That's Nobel for effect because the Felonious 51 signed on it, and they tampered in our presidential election. They meddled in our presidential election. They corrupted quite deliberately, methodically. They corrupted our presidential election. John Penitentiary faced Brennan, who voted for the Communist Party candidate for president, Gus Hall. Never mind that. And the Felonious 51. Now we've got a new one. 16 Nobel Prize winning economists warn that Trump's economic plans could reignite inflation. This is a pretty extraordinary story from CBS News. And everybody's got it, but CBS News is what I'm reading right now. 16 of the world's most notable economists, all Nobel Prize winners, are warning that if former President Donald Trump could stoke inflation if he wins, that former President Donald Trump could stoke inflation if he wins the presidency in November and moves forward with his economic plans. Now, this is truly extraordinary. It reminds me of the Felonious 51. And they gave the Felonious 51, Penitentiary faced John Brennan and the rest of the criminals, they gave Joe Biden a talking point just before the debate, the presidential debate. And Joe Biden used that talking point.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks.
51.
Who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani. Nobody can pronounce Rudy Giuliani's name. That was a giant lie, a fraud, a criminal conspiracy perpetrated by the likes of Penitentiary face Brennan, who should have been frog-marched and should still be frog-marched out in an orange jumpsuit and maybe handed over to ISIS. Okay, maybe not handed over to ISIS, but maybe. And now, and that was the talking point, that those criminals tampering with our presidential election handed the Democrat Party and Joe Biden on the lead up to the big debate. Now, we learned yesterday, 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists come out and say, many Americans are concerned about inflation, which has come down remarkably fast. This is what they write. There is rightly a worry that Donald Trump will reignite this inflation with his fiscally irresponsible budgets. Now, nothing could be more absurd or ironic than that. Joe Biden is spending trillions and trillions and trillions. He's shattering records. And by the way, Joe Biden drove inflation up to 9.1%. And he lied and lied and lied that he inherited inflation that was worse, and that was a lie. On Inauguration Day, inflation was 1.4%. A couple of months before Inauguration Day, before Joe Biden was elected, inflation under Donald Trump was 1.2%. Joe Biden drove it to 9.1%. And then they say, oh, inflation is down. And these Nobel laureates, these Nobel Prize winners say, concerned about inflation, which has come down remarkably fast. It went up remarkably fast when Joe Biden took office from 1.4% to 9.1%, making it impossible for people to buy homes, for real estate agents to sell homes, for banks to give out loans with 9.1% inflation and interest rates climbing and climbing and climbing. And now these frauds that call themselves Nobel Prize winners in the area of economics are saying, oh yeah, Donald Trump is going to drive inflation up. 1.2% inflation under Donald Trump, 9.1% under Joe Biden. And you think that with the trillions Joe Biden is spending for whatever this infrastructure thing, boy, good idea to spend on infrastructure, and all the money, the trillions for let's bail out school loan debt, even though the Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional. Screw that. We're going to do it anyway. And inflation, interest rates, housing sales, the price of a home in the United States hit a record high last week, and that's under Joe Biden. Yet we've got 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists who say Donald Trump will drive up inflation. But what it does, just like the criminals like penitentiary face Brennan that signed on to that felonious 51 letter. These Nobel laureates are giving Joe Biden, watch him use it tomorrow night. He's going to use it. He will say, mark my words, he will say tomorrow night, 16 Nobel Prize winning economists have warned that you will make our economy bad and drive inflation up. And that will be a talking point for tomorrow, provided by left-wing, circle-fest, Nobel Prize-winning economists. Sure. And none of the news media are questioning any of it. They won't point out that inflation, and these guys are specifically citing inflation. Inflation was 1.4% on Inauguration Day, went to 9.1% under Joe Biden. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. I am telling you. Yes, sir. And I have mailbag questions from you. I think I might be stumped by one of them. I'm not sure how to answer one of them, but mailbag is coming up as well. Yes, it is. But they've got the debate. Let's go to soundbite number one, because the big debate is tomorrow, and the news media is very upset. President Trump made jokes because Joe Biden has no energy, and he is, to be polite, lethargic, and his brain, she's a no good, she doesn't work. And Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was asked about a quip that President Trump offered, suggesting, because Joe Biden was all perky for the State of the Union, President Trump said, well, I don't know, maybe Biden ought to be doing cocaine. He's going to show up doing cocaine. And naturally, the news media asked the Speaker of the House about it.
Do you think some of the rhetoric is out of line when people from Trump's team are suggesting that Trump himself, that Biden is going to be on cocaine when he's on that debate stage Thursday night?
CNN.
Look, there's a lot of things that are said in jest. Of course, no one expects that Joe Biden would be on cocaine, but they
like
do
ask son.
Questions, and I think they're objectively. I think it makes sense why people are asking, will he be on some sort of energy drinks or something?
Energy drinks. He's going to need some energy drinks, that's for sure. Speaker of the House, he went on CNN, and they jumped in to start attacking Trump and defending Biden.
Look, his energy levels, you can see, vary depending on what format he's in and what forum. And, we expect that he'll do what he did at the State of the Union. He had a lot of energy that night. So that's the Joe Biden I expect to see. The question is, can he stay for 90 minutes on that stage and go toe-to-toe with President Trump, who, as you know, goes to rallies and talks for 2 hours on end without any break and any notes?
Right. And that's all true. See, there's the truth, things that are true, then things that are false. And again, they take him literally but not seriously, continues to this day. President Trump makes jokes. Oh, yeah, Joe Biden's going to show up all coked up. We were joking about that last night on the Right Squad on Newsmax as well. I've got more on that, lots of good stuff on that, actually. Another member of Congress and, maybe just some sugary, caffeine-y drinks for Joe Biden. There's more. 2 years after Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, 65 million abortions since Roe v. Wade in 1972, and thousands more every day. More than 1 million abortions last year, 1 year after Roe v. Wade was overturned. But a wonderful organization called Preborn honors those souls that were lost to the Democrat Party's project, never had a chance to take their first breath. Who would they have? Because honestly, it seems like we've lost a generation when you're talking about tens of millions. It's also been reported that the abortion pill now accounts for 64% of abortions in the United States, and every day, Preborn's network of clinics across the country stands strong for these unborn babies and with their mothers, offering support and free ultrasounds. Show the mother with an unplanned pregnancy, the life growing inside of her. Once she sees it, sees the heartbeat, likely becomes twice as likely to choose life. Now, will you please join Preborn and the Chris Plant Show in defense of the unborn? One ultrasound costs just $28, and $140 helps to rescue 5 babies. All you have to do is dial pound 250 on your cell phone, and when prompted, you say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, the keyword is baby, or you can go online to preborn.com/plant. That's me, preborn.com/PLANTE. Don't forget that pesky E. And rest assured that 100% of your tax-deductible donation will go toward helping to save little babies and comfort their mothers. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, we got more coming up because the big debate is tomorrow. And the news media is already ganging up on Republican world to do their part to corrupt the presidential election. I have more on the Supreme Court ruling from today, and I've got to say I'm disappointed by the ruling. Supreme Court allows White House contacts with social media firms, is the radical left-wing headline at the Washington Post and E. Merrimau. A 6-3 ruling, and it's an interesting 6-3 ruling because the 6 has the 3 liberals and it has 3 conservatives. And in the end, there are questions about the standing of the complainants and whether they have the legal ground to bring the case against the Biden administration for instructing their friends in social media companies like Facebook with Zuckerberg, Democrat donor, and Twitter back when it was owned by Jack Dorsey, Democrat donor. And they were crushing the distribution of the New York Post stories, for example, about Hunter Biden's laptop, tampering with our elections, and also crushing speech about questioning vaccines and the efficacy and safety of vaccines, and about the Wuhan Red Death coming from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And the federal government, the FBI, the intelligence community, the White House meddled with our election by tampering with and working behind the scenes with their left-wing friendlies in the Silicon Valley at the major social media giants to crush speech. And the Supreme Court on Wednesday, that's today, rejected a Republican-led effort to sharply restrict White House officials and other federal employees from pressuring social media companies to remove posts from their platforms that the U.S. government deems problematic. This is free speech, and it's government censorship, saying the challengers did not have the legal standing to bring the case after Missouri and Louisiana and individuals brought the case. So the Supreme Court ruled, and the liberals all ruled that censorship is good. 3 conservatives ruled that they didn't have the standing to bring the case. The Supreme Court ruling is a pretty interesting ruling. It's a 6-3 split. The 3 left-wingers, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who doesn't know what a woman is, even though she is one, Elena Kagan, who's a nut, and Sonia Sotomayor, who is the reincarnation of Jake LaMotta. The 3 libs voted in favor of censorship, and 3 conservative nominees to the court went along with them. Justice Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh are with Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson on this ruling, which basically allows the federal government and the White House to continue to meddle with social media companies and pressuring them to do what the Democrat Party wants, which is what this is all about. And interestingly, the 3 dissenting justices, Justice Samuel Alito, Justice Neil Gorsuch, and the great Justice Clarence Thomas, they all came down on the other side. So you got a 6-3 split, but it's not the 6 conservatives versus the 3 liberals. Something that is worth noting in this is the 3 libs, they voted in favor of the government, right? 3 conservative nominees, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh, went with the 3 libs on this. But their reasoning is that that has to do with the standing of the plaintiffs and so on. The 3 conservative justices, and a point worth making here is, once again, it demonstrates the fact that the conservative nominees, 6 of them, they were split on this because they don't always go party line. The lefties, you can reliably predict, will go party line on every decision that comes before them. The conservatives, you cannot predict which way they're going to go, and you can debate hotly whether they should have gone this way or not. And I'm going to guess that Mark Levin will have a lot to say about this later on today. And it's worth noting that once again, which we see so often, the conservative justices are not a block like the left-wing nominees to the court always are. A block, predictably coming down on the side of the state, the government, not the law, not the Constitution, not even the case necessarily, but they will do what the party wants because when they're at a cocktail reception later this week, they got to get the winks and the nods from the lefties. Whereas conservatives vote their conscience, vote they render their verdicts based on the law, the Constitution, and their conscience, not on what the Republican Party wants, just because it was a Republican president that nominated them. So that matters. That's important. Let's take a phone call, and then I want to get to the mailbag, and we've still got more on the debate, which is tomorrow night, and I can tell that I'm definitely not going to get to everything today that I want to get to. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Mike, calling from South Riding, Virginia. Michael, you are on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. Good morning.
Hey, Mike.
Talk about the classified documents case down in Florida. Trump obviously does not have one attorney on his team who's familiar with classified material in the law. The president has absolute declassification authority. He can declassify any document anytime he wants. He doesn't have to have witnesses. He can say it to himself, this document's unclassified. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I don't understand. His lawyers, they're like the Keystone Cops. They don't know anything, and yet they're trying to defend him against the government. It just astounds me that no one seems to know that on his side.
You have a background in this realm?
Yes, 35 years.
In the intelligence community?
Yes, as an analyst.
Okay. And one of the agencies that we might be familiar with?
Yes.
Okay.
And he or she can look at a document and say, hey, I'm going to declassify this. And now they can have somebody there who witnesses it. Says, yeah, I remember he or she said that. Okay, but that's not the requirement. Congress is the one who passed the statute or wrote the statute.
Right.
And now I'm a CMA person. Okay. Even though I know I don't, if I was president, I don't have to do anything other than say to either louder to myself, this is unclassified. I would have gone through extra hoops. I would have initialed and dated and wrote unclassified on every page, and that way they can't say, "Well, this document's still classified." No, it's not. It says unclassified, and I dated it and signed it right here, and I have the authority to do that. It's just every time this case comes up, first of all, Jack Smith has been illegally appointed, and I don't know why the courts haven't overturned his appointment yet.
Trump's lawyers are pushing that issue right now in court. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and I know there's the Presidential Records Act, and I'm not that familiar with it.
Let me ask you this. Mike. Because we were talking about the FBI bringing with them, and this is, I know, kind of a separate lane, law enforcement and all that, but they brought with them a case full of classified document cover sheets, and when the FBI pulled what they say were classified documents, but we can't know, they placed the classified document cover sheets on stacks of paper, then they photographed the cover sheets that they brought, then they released to the media the photographs that they took of the cover sheets that they brought.
Right. Well, I'm not a lawyer, but that sounds to me like tampering with evidence or planting evidence.
Yeah.
Secondly, if the president declassifies documents, you take off the cover sheets. You don't leave them on because that gives you the impression that it's still classified.
Right. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Michael, thank you very much. Saluting you.
Oh, well.
For your 35 years, that's 35 years of real stuff. That's great. Michael, thank you for the call. And honestly, the FBI brought the cover sheets. That is, I agree with Mike. I'm not a lawyer either. Tampering with that, you're creating evidence. That's bringing the blood to OJ's house. So, see, there it is. There it is, classified documents. We've got the classified documents. You brought the classified documents. And if you didn't bring the documents, you brought the cover sheets. And you staged the scene. And you photographed it. And people say they leaked it. They released it to the media. And that is a conspiracy on the part of more than one person, multiple people in the FBI, to create a scene that looks incriminating because they brought the materials to make it look incriminating. And they shut down the surveillance cameras at the scene because they didn't want what they did to be found out. People need to be held accountable, and that might mean handcuffs and criminal charges. Please. Now, as I mentioned, it is mailbag, and I'm still going to get back because there's more on the big debate tomorrow. And I got to say, this FBI story is the biggest story of not just the day, but beyond. Amazing stuff. Now, let me go to the mailbag. Mailbag. Harrison Fairbanks says Jake Tapper and Dana Bash are going to set traps for DJT, for Donald John Trump. That is a fact, Harrison. Is Trump's team smart enough to prepare him for said traps? Or will the corrupt media win the day? That is a great question. And, I've got to tell you, I can't speak to the people that are working with President Trump to the extent that he's even doing any prep for the debate. I don't think President Trump listens to a lot of other people when people say, here's what you need to do. I think President Trump comes into the room and starts swatting flies as they come at him. Is his team smart enough? I would guess that the team has probably, whoever that is, and whenever they're meeting with him, it might be a 20-minute meeting in the motorcade on the way to the debate in Atlanta, and that'll have to suffice. I hope that President Trump is listening to people that are giving him good advice, because this situation, the circumstance is fraught with peril. Fraught with peril, I tell you. And President Trump, and this goes to another question that I'm going to take on the mailbag too. I think President Trump's team, smart enough to prepare him for the traps. I think President Trump should be prepared for the traps. And I think that the corrupt news media will kind of win the day no matter what, because they don't care. It's going to be 90 minutes. And Harrison, what the media needs is one soundbite of President Trump sounding in a way that they can use to, saying something they can use to vilify him, to make him as the bad guy or the crazy man. And President Trump all too often gives them that soundbite. And Joe Biden just has to sound cogent for one sentence, and that's the sentence that the news media is going to use over and over again. So the news media it doesn't matter what happens when it comes to the news media. President Trump could mop the floor with Joe Biden. Unless Joe Biden collapses and has a heart attack, the news media will declare, if not that he's the winner, they will at least declare that he did great, that criticism of him not being up to the task was misplaced, that he was energetic, he was sharp. Listen to this answer, and they'll use one sentence, and say he did great. He did great. But I gotta tell you another thing. My best girl and I were having a conversation in the kitchen about this last night. And the microphones being shut off and that stuff. And a great listener yesterday saying, they should shut the microphones off on Jake Tapper and Dana Bash while Trump is speaking, and for that matter, while Biden is speaking. But I think that no audience being in the room saying, oh, that's bad for Trump because Trump thrives on an audience and Biden doesn't. Well, Biden is going to be over-prepared because he's spending 6 days in a theater in an airplane hangar that they've turned into a Steven Spielberg-style studio to train him up, right? And when Joe Biden delivers he's going to come with a couple of, maybe a few lines spring-loaded that he's going to spit out at some point. And when those Joe Biden moments are met with dead silence, and President Trump should let dead silence be a big part of the night. With no audience in the room and only Jake Tapper and Dana Bash clapping every time Joe Biden says something and cheering him, I think that the silence in the room, and President Trump should just let Joe Biden say what he's going to say, let it fall on dead silence in a room where there's no audience, and Jake Tapper and Dana Bash will bail him out. But that's okay. You can expose them, and that's all right. Is Trump's team smart enough? Perhaps. Will President Trump listen to them? But I just think that he needs to be disciplined tomorrow night. And that goes to the next question, actually. Robert Fisher. Very polite words. Thank you for the education. Your shows are very informative and educational, says Robert Fisher. What would you advise Trump to do going into the debate? What style should he use? Any specific points you'd like to see him make? I got to say, once again, I'd like to see him remain calm, cool, and collected. Let Jake Tapper and Dana Bash do what they're going to do. Don't get riled up and bark back at them. So, kind of laugh and then make your point about how great the economy was under you. 1.2% inflation, $2.11 gas prices. Make the points. Grocery store shelves were full and prices were a lot lower. Joe Biden has blown up the economy and made it worse and everything else. I want to see President Trump be calm, cool, and collected. Make strong points about peace in the world when you were president, about the economy being strong, about our our border being under control, and that there are a bunch of women and children in America like Laken Riley and Ruby Garcia and a 12-year-old in Houston that would be alive today if it weren't for Joe Biden's open border policies. But be calm, be cool, be collected, make your points in favor of yourself, and ignore Jake Tapper's questions and Dana Bash's questions. Make your point. Ignore Joe Biden's little zingers that will fall on dead silence and the thing and so on, definitely. And Ignacio says, how drunk will Hillary be Thursday night? How drunk will Hillary be? She's been celebrating her book release, which is destined for the 99-cent pile. That's true. Another Hillary book coming out like that somebody else wrote for her. And then the publishing house gives them $8 million for a book that nobody will buy and nobody will read. And it will go to the 99-cent pile. How drunk will she be on Thursday night? I think that, she might wait for some kind of a media hit. And then the empty 1-gallon cardboard box of cheap New Zealand Chardonnay is going to be, Yes, sir, she's going to get drunk. I think that's right. I think Hillary will get drunk. Another night where she's not debating to be and Joe Biden is there and she knows that he's brain damaged. She's going to be drinking her brains out. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Punchist Law asks, what's your take on what happens if Trump isn't elected? If Trump is not elected, well, then it's the fourth term of Barack Obama. The commies rule the roost. Our borders are open. We're no longer an English-speaking country. War spreads around the world. Our economy is doomed. because it's Barack Obama's fourth term. Either way, Hillary will be horribly miserable. She'll be hilariously miserable. Whether Biden wins another term, unless Hillary, because, you got to look, Biden could go down a flight of stairs, and Hillary is standing in the wings. But a fourth term of Obama, and I know people that believe that the United States of America would be over, never to come back if Obama gets this fourth term. By the way, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, announcing today that the House will file suit next week to enforce the subpoena to try to get the recording of Joe Biden's interview with the special counsel, Robert Hur, which they're stonewalling us on, and the news media is in favor of stonewalling. And by the way, FBI, you ever going to catch that pipe bomb guy with the RNC and the DNC? Got video of him talking on his cell phone. Honestly. You know what? Let's go to number 10 instead. This is kind of an interesting soundbite of a Democrat strategist, Liz Smith, talking about the debate and what President Trump should do.
My concern as a Democrat is that a lot of people are going to expect the unhinged Donald Trump. There's a lot of indications that it might not be the Donald Trump who shows up. This election cycle, he has a much more professional, disciplined team than he's had in the past. And we saw that when he's had big moments before, like the night he won the Iowa caucuses, a very restrained and, dare I say, boring Donald Trump showed up. And Joe Biden and Democrats need to be prepared for that and be prepared for someone who's not going to show up and be a raving lunatic.
That'll throw them off. They wouldn't know what to do then. Well, I see a lot of great callers waiting on the line. I apologize, I can't get to everybody. Law enforcement, documents, all kinds of great stuff. Gigantic story. The big debate is tomorrow night. I can hardly wait. I'm going to go out and buy a six-pack.